Hi, this is Stanley Bronstein, the founder of SuperChangeYourLife.com. Welcome to another in our ongoing series of interviews titled, How One Person Can Change the World. In this series, we're interviewing people who are using their ideas, passion, and energy to change the lives of others. Today we're interviewing Dr. Colleen Georges. Colleen has been serving as a counselor and coach for 15 years, helping to guide individuals through self-discovery and personal and career goal achievement. Today, she owns Colleen's Career Creations and Life Coaching with Colleen, where she facilitates personal and professional development workshops and provides career and life coaching services. Colleen is also a faculty member at Rutgers University, where she teaches graduate-level counseling and undergraduate women's leadership courses. She received her doctorate in counseling psychology from Rutgers as well. She's a New Jersey licensed professional counselor and holds over a dozen certifications in positive psychology, parenting with positive discipline, life and career coaching, resume writing, and job search. Her publications include co-authorship in Contagious Optimism, Uplifting Stories and Motivational Advice for Positive Forward Thinking, and 101 Great Ways to Enhance Your Career, and work featured in the Gallery of Best Resumes, the 5th edition. Colleen has been interviewed for and quoted in key online and print media, including Forbes.com and the Trenton Times. There's more, but rather than go into a lot more detail about her background, it's time to let Colleen tell us more about herself and her current activities. Colleen, welcome to Super Change Your Life. How are you today?
I'm awesome. Thank you, Stanley. I'm honored to be here.
I'm glad you're here, too. You ready to change some lives?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. Let's back up. Let's go to the very beginning.
Sure.
When you were growing up, did you have any clue you were going to be doing what you're doing now?
Oh, God, no. When I think back to, things that I thought about doing with my life, I remember only a couple, sort of aspirations as a little kid. I liked going to the dentist, one, because I never had a cavity, so I guess that was a pleasant experience for me. So I once thought I'd be a dentist. And then for many years, because I loved Indiana Jones, I thought I'd be an archaeologist, but I did not think I'd be doing this.
I think that's one of my upcoming things I plan on interviewing is some archaeologists, so maybe I'll bring you back.
I still think that's fascinating.
When that happens. So what got you into this area?
Oh, boy. Well, it's funny. When I look back to my very first job, when I was 14 years old, that summer I turned 14 in June, and that summer I got a part-time job as a camp counselor. And that's kind of what I did in the summers during high school. I worked as a camp counselor. So I think the irony is that working as a counselor, I started doing that early. And I liked that work, and I worked with young kids and teenagers. And I already could kind of get a sense at that point that I enjoyed it. And then in high school, I took some elective classes. The electives that I liked the most were my creative writing classes and my psychology course. So I considered being a writer and, kind of thought, but how exactly does one become a writer? Maybe it might make sense to have another sort of career path and maybe do writing on the side. So I ended up deciding to major in psychology, and it sort of kept going that direction, and I, continue with that path in graduate school.
Now, would you say you went into psychology? They always say psychologists do it because they want to figure themselves out first.
It's so funny because a lot of times I hear that. I also hear, oh, do you like analyzing people? And I think it's so funny because for me it wasn't, I don't know that it was so much about myself, or I think we all are interested in understanding ourselves, but I think for me, I just really always liked helping people. I mean, even when I think back to being a kid, I remember that, if there was ever somebody in my class that, perhaps wasn't as popular or was kind of on the sidelines or, they looked sad or something was going on in their life, I always liked to sort of, I don't know if you call it like take them under my wing if they were my peer, but that I think I always enjoyed that. So I think it was really just about helping.
So you're a fan of the underdog?
Oh my goodness, yes, very much.
Oh, where has my underdog gone? Most the younger people will not catch that reference.
No.
Anyway, our age betrays us.
Yes.
So, actually, our experience betrays us. How's about that? That's
true. Age has nothing to do with it, right? I read somewhere that you said that we can keep getting younger if we try, and I agree with that.
Oh, I'm a big believer in that, and
yeah.
I had somebody just the other day. They were talking about have you ever heard the story about people that collect marbles, and either once a week or once a month or once a year they have a set number of marbles and they pull it out as each year goes by or
no,
whatever.
I didn't hear about that.
They dispose of the marble. Well, I met someone the other day who they said, the average person lives 80 years, so they have, X number of marbles to finish off until they're 80, and once a year they take them out and they contemplate on their birthday, and they take it out and they contemplate what their life has been over that last year, and then they
awesome.
And then they throw the marble away. Well, I've been doing that for the last 12 years, but I do it weekly, and
oh my.
And the only difference is I bought enough marbles to last me until I'm 140.
Oh, that's a lot of marbles. You must have to have like an extra room for that.
Well, not an extra room, but I honestly, when I did it, I swear I cleaned out every Toys R Us in the entire city of Phoenix from marbles. I did.
That's good because I don't think a lot of kids are buying them these days. So they probably had a lot in stock they needed to sell.
And it actually fits inside. It fits inside of 2 legal-sized boxes, so it's not that bad.
There you go.
But it's an interesting thing. Because I was telling somebody, that when you sit there and you do that, you're actually programming yourself to live only 80 years.
That's a good point.
Good point. And I was like, hey, it's like what George Burns. He always said he wanted to live to be 100. He hit 100. He dropped dead.
That's true. Well, that's a good goal. 100 works for me. I could see that.
as long as you're healthy, that's what.
Yeah, exactly.
So, as you got into this career, tell us how was it a straight line process, or did it evolve, or did it take left and right turns to get you to where you are today?
So yes and yes. So I think, I'm fortunate that I kind of figured out early on what I wanted to do, and that the only thing that's really changed for me, I feel, is the way I want to help people, and I guess the avenues through which I enjoy doing that. That's evolved over time. But when I started out in college, for about 2.5 years in the latter part of college, I had my first job that was really something I could say was in the helping professions, and I worked with teenagers that were diagnosed as being emotionally disturbed, and they were in the foster care system. And I was essentially like, you could consider like a mentor. They called it a therapeutic assistant. And I joke that while I've had many, many jobs since then that I've absolutely loved, that will always remain probably one of my absolute favorite jobs ever, and one of the most life-changing at $8 an hour. So I loved it. It was amazing. I feel like those kids changed me as much as, if not more, than I ever did them.
How so? Can you remember any observations you had or experiences you had at the time?
Sure. I think what I realized, and this was something that I carried with me, when I really did finally get into graduate school and I was doing formal counseling and in my career afterwards, I realized that, a lot of what we do, while I'm obviously a faculty member and I teach, I train, rising, helping professionals, I think that education and foundation is critical, but in the end, what really matters is that a person can feel that you understand them, that you care about them, that you're invested in them, that you're empathic about what they've gone through, that you can validate that, they've had challenges, you validate their feelings and their experiences. And I think I realized that really early on with the teens I worked with, many of whom, initially were very, very sketchy about a new person, yet another person coming into their life to, quote, help them. And, they sometimes would kind of give you a tough time and run for your money in the beginning, make you earn it, earn their respect, earn their trust, and that's what they should do because many of them have very, very difficult lives. But I think I realized really early that as long as they could see in me that they really mattered to me and I was invested in them, that's really what kind of is at the heart of it all.
That you cared.
Yeah, exactly.
And I like what you say about respect because I've always been told respect is to be earned, not to be given freely.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And so many people, they get a name or they get a title or
right.
whatever, and they demand that they be respected.
Yeah,
and
I don't agree with that.
They will get some respect, but it has to be earned. Even parents have to earn the respect of their children.
Oh yeah, I've got a 4-year-old going on 5, and that is true. I thought you
were going to say you have a 4-year-old going on 30.
Yeah, well, he's definitely going on being 15. He's beyond his years, the way his brain works. But yeah, so he'll be 5 in April.
He already has you figured out, I guess, is what.
Oh, forget it. He's got me wrapped around his little finger. Everyone knows it.
That's good. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all.
So, as you worked with these kids, you saw changes in them, didn't you?
Yeah. I think what I've started to see was just that, I don't know if, maybe trust is the right word, but to begin to be able to trust people, to sort of let a wall come down. These, like I said, these were kids that had really tough lives. I read their case files and they had been through things that nobody wants to go through in their very short existences on Earth. And they were able to let down their walls and, let somebody in. And I think that made a huge difference because in essence it gives somebody hope that as they get older, as they evolve and mature and go on with their lives and have careers and, consider having careers and consider having families, that, that they can trust people. That, yes, you do have to, as we just said, think about who you're trusting and, not just, give it away. But I think that many of them were at a place where they weren't really sure if they could trust anybody, and that just having a relationship with one person or a couple people that they truly felt they could, trust and did have an investment in them made a huge difference. Yeah.
And sometimes what's even more important, or just as important, I guess is a better way to put it.
Yeah.
Learning to trust yourself.
Oh God, so true, so true. Yeah, and I think that was hard for all of them. Just believing that there was something in them that was valuable, and that was a really huge piece of it. It's just if somebody cares about you, then you can, as you said, you can begin to believe in yourself, believe that you're worth it. When you've had parents and other people that are supposed to care for you and supposed to love you that simply don't know how to do that. They don't know how to do it for themselves, and they don't know how to do it for their children in many cases. Mm-hmm. How hard is it? You think that's our foundation. That's how we begin to love ourselves. And if you don't have that, you have to be able to establish that later on, and that's a really hard thing to do.
Now, I've got an idea that I've been discussing with people lately. I'm curious to see what you think about this. People often ask me, what is the number one problem in America these days? Mm-hmm. And I always say, and it's not just America, it's the world. Yeah. I say all too often, all too many of us only care about ourselves.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think? What do you think about that? And if you agree with me, how do we encourage other people to care about others?
It's funny. I believe that there are a lot of people that are very that are kind of into their own worlds and have a hard time seeing, outside of their existence. But I guess in some ways I also feel like there are probably a lot more good people out there than not.
There
right?
are. There are.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there aren't good people.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying a lot of people aren't good sometimes. I'm just saying not often enough.
Right. Yeah. I think that I would agree with you in the respect that we have to learn how to step outside of ourselves and outside of what's going on in our world. And it's funny because I think in the Contagious Optimism book that you mentioned earlier, one of the things that I wrote about and that I think about a lot is probably along these lines, and it's the idea that sometimes we're so caught up in what's going on in our lives that we forget that other people are human beings too. So, I always kind of make this analogy or this, statement about, you think about how we often treat, say, cashiers in in the supermarket or Target or, Walmart or wherever you are, that so often I see people sort of disregard them almost like they're not human beings and get frustrated if they move too slow or if, something's going on with the person in front of you and they're having trouble with a credit card or something, or there's a machine, something wrong with the machine, that I feel like people are so kind of like, go, I have somewhere to be, that they get angry and frustrated very easily with other people and forget that, they've got their own issues. And the people that we encounter every day, they're working too, and they've got stuff going on at home too. And, that I feel probably falls in line with what you're talking about, that we get so kind of wrapped up in ourselves that we forget about that.
And I think a lot of it is just a matter of awareness, because I think the average person doesn't want to be rude to the cashier or the waiter in the restaurant once they realize that they're a human being. But it's becoming aware of that that's the issue, I think.
It's funny. My husband he always kind of jokes with me that even this morning when we had to go take care of getting new ID cards at Rutgers together this morning, but that I have a habit of kind of engaging conversation with everybody everywhere we go. So that I think has a lot to do with it, though. If we kind of step back and just engage in conversation with people that we happen to come across wherever, that makes a difference. I think that because that gives you the opportunity to see them as people with lives and problems and strengths and limitations. And, if you just give yourself that opportunity every day to simply engage, I think that makes all the difference of sort of stepping outside of yourself.
Absolutely. And just smile at someone.
Yes.
say hello to someone.
Exactly.
I cannot tell you how many times I do a lot of walking outside, and some people are so friendly, and some people, you tell them hello, and they look at you like you just,
they're
try
scared.
to kill them or something. And
what do you want from me?
they might be, and and I realize different cultures, have different ways of doing things.
Yeah.
And I realize sometimes somebody's running and they might be zoned out and they're not paying attention.
Right.
Because they're in their own little world inside of their heads, which is perfectly fine. That's one of the reasons you do that kind of stuff.
Right.
So as we move forward, tell us about the work that you're doing currently and the projects that you're working on right now.
Sure. So I think a couple of the things that I'm probably most excited about, obviously I have my business in career coaching and life coaching and obviously working on people's resumes, and that's a regular part of my sort of daily and weekly life, which I love because it's exciting when somebody comes back to me and, tells me that they just got a job offer, they're starting a new job next week. I mean, that's the stuff that makes it so, it's worth it all the time, but that makes it really worth it, is when you get the good news. And I think, aside from that sort of being a regular part of my life, The two things that I'm really most excited about right now, one is in conjunction with the Contagious Optimism book series. I have had the opportunity, starting with the first group was in September, to sort of launch a side project in association with the book, and it's something that I do at the Saraville Library, which is my hometown library where I grew up in New Jersey. And on a monthly basis, we have a group that meets, and I read at least one story from Contagious Optimism, or an excerpt from a story, and then I kind of let that be the direction. Let's say maybe the story was about kindness, or the story was about forgiveness, or gratitude, or goal setting, or whatever, reframing the way you look at things. So I read something, and then I let that sort of be the sort of topic of discussion for that day, where people share. I ask people to share their own experiences with those, whatever that topic is for the hour and a half that we meet. And then I don't like to call it homework, but many of them refer to it as homework. I assign them an activity or an exercise to engage in between the then and the next meeting. And those activities are based in positive psychology, which is my passion. Positive psychology is an area of psychology, you may be familiar, that really talks about what's right about people instead of what's wrong with people, because psychology is a field.
What a novel concept.
Yeah, right? And it's funny to think psychology being, obviously a field that's been around for a very, very long time. There was always theorists that dealt in this area, but it was never sort of picked up as a movement, And in around 1998, the president, at the time of the American Psychological Association, Martin Seligman, he sort of launched, the same, of course, launched this movement in positive psychology. And, that was 1998, and here we are in 2014. All of a sudden, all these years later, I think we're finally starting to see it really take off. It was, it was talked about, it was written about, but, as they say, it came within a few years of September 11th. The timing wasn't fantastic. People, were very sort of jaded and, and upset, at that time because of the things that were going on in the world, and it may not have been the best timing for that movement. But recently we see, with Sean Achor and Tal Ben-Shahar, we see all these books on happiness and boosting happiness. It's really become a movement. So this is really a big part of what I do with this group. So they do it in exercise. This month I just met with them on January 25th for our 4th meeting. Our group is up to 20-plus members now. It started out with less than 10. It's growing and growing. I have people bringing family members. I got husband-wife teams that come, moms and daughters that come. The demographic is changing of all different ages and cultures. And their activity this month is to take an assessment where they're going to assess their strengths of character, and then they're going to use their top 5 strengths to engage in 5 consecutive days in act of kindness using that strength. So
excellent.
Those are the types of things that we do. And then right along those lines, the other thing that I'm super excited about is that this semester I was fortunate because of, I will mention my mentor, Sandra Tomlinson Clark at the Rutgers Graduate School of Education, who was my mentor when I was a graduate student, and now she's a colleague and a friend. And she enabled me to be able to create my own course at the Graduate School of Education. So this semester I have 20 students enrolled in an online graduate positive psychology, positive counseling course. And they come from, those 20, from a variety of backgrounds. Some are studying school counseling, some counseling psychology, some social work, some college student affairs. And we're basically teaching them, or I should say I'm helping to teach them, how do you assess the positive, how do you assess the strengths in yourself, in the populations that you work with, and how do you engage in interventions to boost happiness, boost optimism, boost forgiveness, boost gratitude, in, again, yourself and the people that you're serving. So those are the two things that right now are just, the happiest probably highlights for me.
When you're talking about positive psychology,
yeah,
you made me think of a saying I heard just yesterday.
Oh.
And it kind of stuck with me. Think about this one and tell me what you think.
Sure.
Celebrate life as it is, not as it ain't.
Exactly. We spend a lot of time thinking about what we don't have, feeling frustrated for the things that we've missed out on, feeling frustrated for the what-ifs and the mistakes that we've made, and what we don't have and what life isn't or ain't. And we really.
I know
yeah.
you hate to use that word, but anyway.
I use it in my normal language, but I felt like, oh, should I say that in an interview?
Yeah, it's not a dirty word.
Right. Yeah, but I agree with that. I have to say that if there's two things that have changed my life in particular, I would say that number one, hands down, is taking time to be thankful. And starting out probably a little over 10 years ago, I started by, just trying to think of, at the end of the day, a few things I was thankful for that day. And I think now I've been doing this for about 13 or 14 years now. And now I just do it naturally, as I imagine you do with the work you do, and throughout the day, all day long. I'm constantly thanking. In my case, I believe in a God. We all believe in something different, but I'm thanking a God for all the little things, even the silly stuff. Somebody lets you make a left turn when you're driving somewhere, whatever it might be. But always being very thankful for what I have, and learning to be happy, not just okay or satisfied, but happy with everything that I have, even if there might be certain things that I had it intended or kind of wanted it to be a little different. I really believe that wherever we are is where we're supposed to be, and it all. I think there is a purpose for all of this, and really that gratitude has changed my life completely. And then the second thing is, making a real concerted effort to try to do just good things for people just because, and not concern yourself with thank yous, not concern yourself with, any sort of expectations out of it, but just to do it because it's the right thing to do, because it makes you happy, makes you feel good. But those, I think, are the two things that have really sort of changed my life.
Oh, absolutely. I met a man back in 2007. You ever meet people who they'll stick with you the rest of your life?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There's a man, he's passed away now. His name was Charlie Tremendous Jones.
Oh, wow.
From Pennsylvania, because he always used to run around saying life is tremendous. So people started calling him Mr. Tremendous and everything. But one of the things he told me that stuck with me, he said, if you're not grateful for what you have now, mm-hmm. what makes you think you're going to be grateful if you have more?
Yeah, you're not. It lasts, right? Those things, if you can't, that's such good advice, because if you can't be grateful for the little things, even when the big things come, it might make you happy for a day or two, but it doesn't last. And you have to learn. I think that's something you learn. That's something you have to work on every day, is how can I make myself continuously grateful for all the things that exist, rather than let it be a fleeting, I'm excited about it today, and by tomorrow I need something else to make me happy.
Sometimes I think the easiest way to do it is, is to just do it, and that's
exactly.
That's not trying to rip off Nike.
Right. I know. I feel like I'm doing that too.
But it's just plain and simple is just do it. So often we focus on, well, this bad thing happened to me, and this happened, mm-hmm. and how do I get over it and everything else? You just do it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I'm sorry.
And I was going to say, bad things, they happen all the time, and they happen to everybody. And I think that's, one of the things, kind of going back again with positive psychology that I also like, and then sort of the happiness literature, is that it's not that we're going to be perfectly, exhilarantly happy every single day. It's not that means that if something tragic happens or something bad happens that you're not going to have a moment where you're frustrated, or maybe even, a while where you're frustrated. Sometimes, again, something happened, somebody important to me passed away, and it took me weeks before I could kind of bring myself back again and be like, okay, got to keep it moving, I think the reality is that this is life, things will happen. We can never say that you're impermeable to life's difficulties and life's tragedies. We just have to learn how to feel what we feel and try to find whatever meaning we can in it as best as possible, and, find the other things that we have that are good in order to sort of, to the best of our ability, overcome the things that maybe aren't so fantastic.
Agreed. I have one last idea I'd like to throw out to you.
Sure.
Before we wrap this up.
Yeah.
All too often, we go through life and we think of things as obligations. We have to go see our parents. We have to pay this bill. We have to go to work. We have to do this. We have to do that. And what I'm suggesting, a very valuable thing for people to be, would be if we could have a mindset shift, where instead of looking at those things as obligations, we looked at them as privileges.
I agree with that.
I don't have to help my neighbor. I get to help my neighbor.
Exactly. I really do agree. That is such a great way to look at things, and you're right. Each day you have your stresses, and one of the things I always, I think I was just saying it last night. It was up until just a little after midnight. I was working on a resume, and there's all these things, and I said, oh gosh, I've got all these things to do, and tomorrow I'm going to have all these things to do, and how am I going to get this stuff done? But I always, in those moments, like I literally either in my head or out loud, and last night I think I said it out loud to my husband, when I get like that, I always say, you know what? What if no business was coming in? What if
you got
right?
that right.
Hey, I'm lucky to be busy. Yeah, sometimes it can be tiring to juggle a lot of stuff, and you know this with all the stuff that you do, attorney, CPA, speaker, author, interviewer, right? But what if there wasn't all of that? What if you didn't have all these things to do? These are the things that, as you said, they may be obligations, but in many ways they are also the things that bring meaning to our life, and that you have to focus on that these, you're right, they're privileges. They're privileges. Even sometimes the stresses you experience are privileges. You're absolutely right.
You know what one of my friends always says when I would in the old days, and I've taken this to heart. I would complain about something I had to work on, and he would say, "Look, just do the work, shut up, and send them a bill."
Exactly. You got it.
And so I've learned that. I was talking to him about something just the other day, and he said, "So what did you do?" I said, "I did the work. I shut up, and I sent him a bill."
You feel a whole lot better afterwards.
Yeah, that's just the way it works.
Yes.
So in closing,
sure.
Is there anything you would like to add to what you've already said?
I think we've kind of already covered it, but I think that life is all about reframing. It's about taking what's going on in your life and being able to find meaning in it as best as possible, even the rough stuff. And just being able to reframe the way you look at the world, reframe the way you look at the things that you have or you don't have, reframe the way you look at the people in your life. that I do believe that the more that we do that, the more it becomes second nature, and it just isn't even something you need to think about too much anymore. You just sort of do it by rote, by, it's automatic. But that is key. And I've also, one of the things I always, because career counseling obviously is such a huge part of my life and what I do, I always tell my students, my clients, and, people in my life, I've always lived by the idea that if there's something that's not happening in your life or in your work, go find it, go seek it out, go pitch it to your boss, whatever. Go do the best to make it be in your life. If there's a strength you have personally, professionally, whatever, that you feel like you're not using, well, then go find a way to use it. In other words, if you don't like your world, change it. Change it. Exactly. I guess, again, you super change your life.
Yeah.
That's it. Go change it. Just go. I mean, it's that easy, really.
Absolutely. Well, and it's funny you say that, because Super Change Your Life came out quite by accident, because Change Your Life, the domains were already taken, and so I had to come up with something.
So it worked so well because, right, you heard that supercharge, and I said, oh, I like that, super change.
No, it does. I guess I don't want to put a supercharger in my car. I want to put a super changer in my car.
That sounds better.
That works. Well, it's been a pleasure talking with you. You've definitely
too, Stanley.
You've been a breath of fresh air.
Oh, thank you. So have you. I love talking to other people who kind of see the world like I see it.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. It was great. Thank you.